It looks like there may have actually been some smoke to the rumors around Darian DeVries potentially leaving West Virginia to go to the Iowa Hawkeyes. What is up, and welcome to this live edition of Hoops from the Hills. Thank you for tuning into the show, whether you're watching on X or whether you're watching here on YouTube. If you are watching on X, I ask that once the show's over, please come over to my YouTube channel, Hoops from the Hills. Please subscribe. Please hit the thumbs up button wherever you're watching. Please support my work here. Now, it's been rumored for quite a while that Fran McCaffrey may be gone from Iowa as the head men's basketball coach. Fran McCaffrey been the coach at Iowa for 15 years. He has officially, according to reports by John Rothstein at CBS Sports, Pete Thamel at ESPN, and others, McCaffrey has officially been let go. Now, several other sources are reporting that Darian DeVries is at the very top of Iowa's list as the next head coach in Iowa. And I know what a lot of people out there are thinking. Couz, why in the world would he leave West Virginia to go to Iowa? Well, he's from Iowa. Iowa is his home. I know he didn't attend Iowa. I know he didn't play for Iowa, but he lives in Iowa. He's from Iowa. His family lives in Iowa. He has spent his entire career up to this point, up to this year, has spent his entire career coaching in the Midwest. He coached at Creighton for about 17 years, which is in Nebraska. Then he coached at Drake for 7 years, which is in Iowa, in Des Moines. He grew up in Appleton, Iowa, which is less than 2 hours from Iowa City, which is where the University of Iowa is located. So, at the end of the day, there are several factors that could determine whether or not Darian DeVries wants this job, or takes the job. I'm sure they're probably going to talk to him, and I'm sure he's probably going to at least entertain the conversations. But it's all going to boil down to, does Darian and his family like living in Morgantown, or do they want to go back home? That's going to be a big decision here. Great point, Daniel Gigax. It could be his wife's decision. Now, and he's also got a daughter that's in high school. She might have a say. I doubt she'll have a say. It'll likely be up to the wife. But his wife's going to. How much does she like living in Morgantown? Does she hate Morgantown? Does she want to go back home and be with her family? He has. I've read. I don't know how true this is. I've read he has aging parents. I do know this from some inside knowledge I do have. Coach DeVries and the DeVries family are extremely, extremely close. They are a very tight-knit, close family. So, he might be homesick. He could be missing home. We don't know the answer to that question. Other factors are going to be money. We all know money's going to play a factor. He signed a 5-year deal at West Virginia. It's my understanding it averages out to about $3 million a year. His buyout is about 35% of that money, ballpark. So Iowa would have to pay his buyout of about $4.5 million on top of whatever salary they give him, which would likely have to be more than $3 million if they want to get him away from Morgantown. So that's going to play a role too. How much can Iowa pay? How much are they willing to pay? And I know everybody brings up Big Ten money. I've read some stuff that Iowa has not exactly handled their finances all that great over the last several years. Iowa may not be as in great shape as we think financially, especially when it comes to NIL. How is their NIL situation? Can they support their student athletes through NIL better than West Virginia can? A lot of this is going to play a role here. How much, we don't know. But at the end of the day, these are human beings, they have families, and their families matter. What their family wants matters. But again, as of right now, nothing. Darian DeVries has not come out and said anything, at least not as of this show. So we don't know. He has not, like Tosh mentioned in the comments, he has not shut down these rumors. Tosh makes a great point. If he was for sure staying, he would have shut down these rumors long ago. It's a great point. He also may not have wanted to bring it up because he didn't want to distract from the team's season. That's another thing that might be an issue here. But I can almost guarantee you Iowa, if they haven't already, will be reaching out to Darian DeVries. Now, here's something else this could be that would be more positive for us West Virginia fans. Maybe this is just Darian DeVries' agent using this Iowa job opening to get him more money or an extension. Maybe that's all this is. If any agent that worth their salt is they're going to be like, okay, Darren's from Iowa. The Iowa job's open. Iowa's interested. Even though Darren may not be interested, we know Iowa's interested. We have to use that as leverage to get him more money. That's what agents do. Maybe this is that. Maybe this is it. We don't know who these sources are that are sharing this information. Trilly Donovan, a very well-known burner on X who is in the know. He's predicted just about every daggone coaching job out there in the past. He is somebody in the know. Nobody knows who he is, or at least most people don't know who he is. But he is in the know, and he gets most of these things right. He put out a tweet a few days ago saying, "Hey, there's some smoke here." He even went as far as to say that DeVries wanted the Iowa job a long time ago. He didn't use the word dream job, but it's a job Darren DeVries has, I think, coveted is the word he used. Darren DeVries has coveted this Iowa job for a while. I even read that he was the runner-up to the job when Fran McCaffrey got it 15 years ago. So it looks like there could be some smoke here. Got to give some credit. Mountaineer Paul put this out on his show Locked On the other day. He took a lot of crap for it. People thought he was just clickbaiting. Maybe he wasn't clickbaiting. Maybe he was onto something. So, again, nothing's happened yet. Again, it's as of right now, it's all just it's stronger than rumor because there were reports by legit media outlets, but nothing has happened yet. It's not time to make a hot board. It's not time to say, okay, who's going to be the next coach at West Virginia? We're not there yet, but there's interest, and apparently could potentially be interest on both sides. Let's go ahead and pull up, and I'll get the comments in a second. Thanks to everybody for hopping on here again. Come over to Hoops from the Hills. Want to give a quick shout out to my new sponsor here at Hoops from the Hills, Appalachia Digital. I have a brand new website called WVSportsChat.com. And by the way, I wrote an article about this over there, so please go read it. But Appalachia Digital are the folks who designed my new website. It's clean. It looks good. It's professional. So if you want a new website, if you have a small business or plan to start a business or whatever, and you want a new website, go check out the fine folks there at AppalachiaDigital.com and use /Couz. That way they know that I sent you. And also, if you already have a website and you want to be found easier on Google, they can help with that too. Appalachia Digital is the place for you if you need any of that stuff when it comes to having your presence online and making it more prominent. They're the folks you need to see. Go check them out, and thanks to them for supporting my show. All right, now let's go ahead and share. I'm going to do a screen share here and share the report from On3. Okay, this is what On3 put out. Now, this is not an article, or this is the link to an article. It says, all right, it says, new Iowa head coach hot board via Jamie Shaw. Now, this isn't behind the paywall, so I didn't click it, but as you see, Darian DeVries front page, him and two other coaches, including Ben McCollum on the right, who's another Iowa native, who replaced DeVries at Drake and who coincidentally has connections to Wren Baker. He used to coach at Northwest Missouri State, where Wren Baker used to be the AD. So many connections here. It's crazy. But anyway, DeVries apparently and McCollum are their 1A and 1B options here. Many think that DeVries is option one because of his experience, his extensive experience at the D1 level. He was at Drake for 6 years. He's been at West Virginia for a year, whereas Ben McCollum was only coached at the D1 level for one season. So it looks like it's DeVries, then McCollum, and then everybody else right now. Now, again, I mentioned Trilly Donovan. Here's another. I'm going to do another screen share. This is about a little over 1 minute clip here from CBS Sports. Talking about this on a recent episode of their show. Here we go.
what kind of candidate it can lure. But I do believe that Ben McCollum and Darian DeVries are the two top names for the impending vacancy with the Hawkeyes. It's an intriguing job, making calls to a variety of sources on the Iowa stuff in the weeks leading up to this, Jenny, because unfortunately, and fair or not, it was expected that it would come open. Big Ten is now an 18-school conference, and Iowa is just not viewed by most people in college basketball circles as a top 10 job in the Big Ten now as it's constituted. It's not at the bottom 4, bottom 5, but it's in that kind of second tier, maybe near the lower end of it. You need to rally fan support in a big way. Get a coach in there that can bring about a new era, new culture, and hopefully do something that we haven't seen since 1999, and that's make the Sweet 16. That's the last time this program was in the second weekend of the Big Dance.
All right, so there you have it. CBS Sports, that was, who was that? Matt Norlander at CBS Sports. Darian DeVries, Ben McCollum, right? Everywhere you go, whether it's message boards, whether it's On3, whether it's CBS Sports, whether it's Trilly Donovan, whoever, Darian DeVries is at the top of almost every list, folks. For us West Virginia fans, man, this is not. It's not good for us. We've been through this. We had the whole Huggins fiasco. Then we had the interim thing with Eilert. Then we had the search, in the middle of the summer. Then they had another search after the season. We had obviously the Neil Brown firing. The crap we've had to deal with in football the last few years not being as successful as we wanted. You've had the baseball hiring. You've had women's basketball. I'll tell you what, and who I feel even more bad for, other than us fans, is Wren. Well, Wren Baker's making $1 million a year. He'll be okay. But, Wren Baker's got to be stressing over this. Look at what Wren Baker, since he come in, he's had to hire a women's basketball coach unexpectedly. He's had to hire a men's basketball coach. He's had to name an interim and hire a full-time coach. He's had to name a baseball coach, a volleyball coach, a swimming and diving coach. He had the whole Huggins situation he had to deal with. He's had football to deal with. He, had to hire Rich Rodriguez at football. He's had to do so much within like 3 years of being here. It is insane, all the stuff Wren Baker's had to go through. And here we are again. Wren Baker may have to hire another men's basketball coach at West Virginia, somebody that's only been there a year, potentially. This is just insane. Now, obviously, there are lists of candidates. I'm sure people are going to want that. I'm not ready to put that out yet. I don't want to do that unless the job comes open. I don't feel like that's fair to the team. I mean, heck, they're getting ready to potentially play in the NCAA tournament. They don't need all these distractions, right? I don't think it's fair to come out with a list of potential coaches when Darian DeVries is still the coach. Now, if once it's announced, I'm already working on a list. Once he announces he's leaving, I'll be on here to do a show as soon as I can and give you guys my list. But right now, I'm holding out on that. But this is insane. I never expected this. When I saw Darian DeVries standing up in front of Mountaineer fans and standing up at his opening press conference in front of Mountaineer Nation, I never dreamed we would be here less than a year later thinking he might leave. And if he leaves, they're going to have to go through another rebuild. Another rebuild. Tucker's going to go with him, that, his son, so he won't be back next year. May lose the whole roster again. I mean, I don't even want to think that. I'm getting too far down the rabbit trail now, too far down the line here. I don't want to say it, it's definitely going to happen. But, man, if it does, I can't help but be negative, man, sometimes, because it seems like as West Virginia fans, we're constantly getting kicked in the gut here. But anyway, let's go ahead and get to some comments. See what you guys have to say about this. Shaq, he says, WV needs to match whatever Iowa throws at him, and also a contract extension. And if he wants to leave because we can't get close to that, maybe he doesn't need to be here. Although I think DeVries has better character to start something and not finding it based on how long he stayed at Drake. Yeah, DeVries is not a job hopper. He's had 3 jobs in his career, folks. He's been a coach now, a college basketball coach in some capacity for 24 years, 25 years, something like that. He's been at 3 places. He was an assistant at Creighton for 17 years, and from what I've read, he had multiple opportunities to take head coaching jobs elsewhere. but he chose not to because he was extremely picky on the jobs he took. Drake job came open, he took it. He was there for 6 years. West Virginia job came open, he took it. I'm sure he probably had opportunities to leave Drake at some point, but he didn't. He was waiting for the right job. Now, maybe he's so happy at West Virginia, he doesn't even want to leave. But like Tosh said in a later comment, you think if that was the case, he would have shut this down a long time ago, right? LeBron Jenkins says, why is it that we are always having to fight off these other teams for our coaches? It's likely they don't want anything to do with them until they sign on at WVU and start winning. Please stay, coach. That's just part of it these days. Unless you're in the Big Ten or the SEC or you're at a blue blood program, most of the time your coaches are going to leave if they're good. But in this case, it's not even that. Yes, Iowa's in the Big Ten, but as you heard the guy at CBS Sports say, Iowa's not a top-tier Big Ten job. But in this case, of DeVries, it would be home for him. That's the difference here. He'd be going home to his home state where his family lives, less than 2 hours from where he grew up. He has brothers there that he's close to. He has parents. I'm sure he has, I think he has a sister, friends, uncles, aunts, cousins, you name it, right? It's home. So we'll see how much that means to him, I guess. WVU fan 13 says Rich Rod needs to talk with him about the grass is greener on the other side of the limo. That's a fair point, West Virginia fan 13, but those situations are so different. Rich Rod was leaving for resources, and that's a good point. He talked about how Michigan didn't have the resources he assumed they have. Maybe Iowa doesn't have the resources you think they'd have. And I'm sure DeVries, being from Iowa, I'm sure he has contacts at Iowa who can tell him whether, I'm sure he knows a little bit about that Iowa program, at least you'd think. Jacob Yoho says if he goes, we need to go after Darius. I assume you mean Darius Nichols or Joe Mazzulla. Yeah, Joe Mazzulla has already basically said he wants to be in the NBA. That's his goal. He doesn't want to coach college, so I don't think he's leaving. And Darius Nichols just landed a job. No offense to Darius Nichols. I just think there are more qualified candidates out there right now today than Darius Nichols, including some with West Virginia connections, which, again, I don't want to give my list out just yet. WV Fan 13 says Joe won't leave Boston and we couldn't afford him. Still have to try. You got to call him. Like Wren Baker has talked about, you've got to pick the phone up and make that call, right? Or you're not doing your job. So he'll do that, I'm sure. Jacob, here's his list. If our coach leaves, 1 is Ben McCollum, 2 is Joe Mazzulla, 3 Darius Nichols. And the Ben McCollum thing, I would love Ben McCollum as well as his replacement if he leaves, but here's the thing. Everywhere you go online, it looks like Ben McCollum may be the number 1 candidate for the Indiana job, which is also open. And that's another job that DeVries has been linked to, right? So we'll see there. WVU Fan 13 says Joe was $4.7 million this year at Boston. West Virginia might be able to pay that. I don't know. I don't think they would, and I don't think they need to. And 2, I don't think he wants to leave. Huggins was $4.2 million before his Cincinnati comment. Yep. Travis Overdorf says, I don't think he'll leave for Iowa. Their NIL situation is not as good as ours. Here's what I'm going to assume. This is what's happening. You're going to have Wren Baker gathering the donors up, or at least calling them on the phone, saying, "Hey, here's a situation. We got Iowa breathing down Darren's neck. We need to make sure we have the NIL capabilities to keep him here. We also need to make sure we can pay him more if need be." I'm sure Wren's doing that as we speak if he hadn't already done it. I'm sure Wren's going to do everything in his power to keep Darian DeVries in the fold, including getting donors involved. He's probably talking to Country Roads Trust, seeing what they can do, all that. Travis Overdorf says the guy from Paul's show made it seem like it was. If he does leave, I think we will be set back for a while, especially if he takes this good recruiting class with him. And that's another thing. Man, Travis, you make a great point. That's another thing I wanted to bring up, the recruiting class. West Virginia has 3 4-star commits coming in for next year. 3 4 stars, not 3 stars here. 4 stars, and one, Braden Hawthorne, may eventually be a 5-star before it's all said and done. He's rocketing up the recruiting rankings. Man, I was so excited. I'm so excited about that class. I do not want to lose that class. Okay, I do not want to lose it. And you got Sincere Harris, you got Amani Hansberry. So many guys that you don't want to lose. Jonathan Powell. Ashley DeVries is the key, Daniel. Absolutely. We mentioned that earlier. Tosh, Christopher West says this one and done is BS. Chaz Clark. Couz wanting to know your honest opinion. If Iowa was open when WVU was, and he was the top candidate at Drake or both, would he be here? If he was the top candidate at Iowa when WVU was open, he'd probably be at Iowa. Or I don't know, maybe not. See, somebody brought up a great point on Twitter earlier. If surely to goodness there has been rumblings in Iowa that Fran McCaffrey was on the hot seat, right? You'd think. And surely Darian DeVries being in Drake, not that far away, would have heard those rumblings. But yet he still chose to not wait it out at Drake, not wait out for the Iowa job, which he supposedly coveted, but chose to come to West Virginia. It's possible. It is possible. He prefers the West Virginia job over Iowa. That is possible. I don't want to rule that out. Just because it's home don't necessarily mean it makes it a better job. So that's a hard question for me to answer, Chaz, because without knowing his family dynamic and how badly they, want to be in Iowa and all that stuff, it's hard to answer. But it is a great question, man. It's a deep question kind of too. But I would have to think what little bit I know about Darian DeVries, he probably would have taken the Iowa job if it and West Virginia were both open. But now that he's taken the West Virginia job, he's not the type of guy that typically likes to take a job and only be there a year, especially knowing what he's building at West Virginia. Just doesn't seem like his style. But again, like Jimbo Fisher said in an interview one time, home was home. Home was home. And that may matter. That may mean a lot to him. And if it does, it's hard to fault him for it, isn't it? Our media should have been asking him long ago when the rumor started. Browns and Beers says, I don't think he goes, but it wouldn't shock me. Luckily, the worst case scenario of missing the tournament and losing DeVries seems unlikely. Knocks on wood. Speaking of the tournament, Browns and Beers, you bring up another great point. Think about this. It's possible that being in the tournament, although I would rather be in the tournament, but looking ahead here, let's just say Darian DeVries takes the Iowa job and West Virginia gets in the tournament. He's not going to do anything until the tournament's over, which means what for West Virginia? It means most of the good candidates, or a lot of the best candidates, will be off the board by that time. So it's possible that Darian DeVries wants the Iowa job, but doesn't want to leave West Virginia until they finish the NCAA tournament game or games. So he's going to stay until that's over. Thus, the job, by the time the job actually opens up, people like Ben McCollum and some of the other people who might be candidates might be off the board because there are other jobs already open, and other jobs could open up. You've got Iowa opening now. You've got the Indiana job open. You've got some others that could come open depending on what happens in these conference tournaments. So it's possible that making the tournament could actually be, in the long run, end up being a negative when it comes to the coaching search. I don't think that'll happen. Here's if that happens, here's what I'm imagining is going on behind the scenes. Okay, Darian DeVries is going to go talk to Wren. He's going to say, "Look, Wren, I want to finish the season out with these guys, right? But I want to go back home. So I'm going to go ahead and let you know now. This is my plan. That way, Wren can go ahead and get started on his coaching search. The only problem with that is if you do that and you let that out, the players are going to find out, and it might distract them. So that's a tough situation. This is a terrible timing for West Virginia for this to be happening because they're trying to prepare for an NCAA tournament game. Terrible timing. Most of these other coaching openings are teams that aren't going to the NCAA tournament. That's the reason the job's open in the first place. So the timing of this is just not good in any way you look at it, in my opinion. WVU fan forever says, if he leaves, what good is it to have a 5-year contract? Well, the school's going to make money If he leaves, the school's going to make about $4.5 million, and they can use that to help pay the next coach. You know, that's the only thing I can tell you. But it's a fair point. But that's why buyouts exist. Chaz Clark says, not saying this is the case. Could people blame Wren for not extending him earlier, like some said he should do? I'm not saying Wren is wrong. I'm just, that's fair. If Wren knew this might be, Wren is very well connected, folks, and he's got his finger on the pulse. He may have had a feeling this might be coming, and maybe he didn't. Or to flip that around, Chaz, and I think this might be what you're saying. Had Wren extended him earlier and locked him up earlier, maybe it would have held Iowa off. But here's, Chaz, I don't like sharing this because I got it off a message board. But here's what I read on the message board. I think West Virginia, the decision is now in, my understanding as far as a contract extension, it's now in Darian DeVries' hands. That's my understanding. I'm pretty confident that Darian DeVries, that West Virginia already has a contract extension waiting for Darian DeVries to sign. He just hasn't signed it yet, which is also can be concerning, right? That he hasn't signed it. And another piece to that is this. The flip side of that. Maybe DeVries, again, back to maybe he didn't want to distract from what he's trying to do in winning games, so he didn't want to deal with the contract situation until the season was over. Maybe now he sits down and talks to Wren about this contract. I don't know. But the fact he hasn't signed it is a little concerning to me. So I don't, in this case, Chaz, I don't think we can blame Wren because I think Wren has already done his due diligence. It's up to Darian to finish the job. What we know for a fact is Iowa fired their coach. Do we know where these potential rumors are coming from? The coach is the top pick. Yes, on 3, and I think I addressed that already. You asked this question a while back. On 3, Trilly Donovan, who's a very well-connected burner account that uses an alias. CBS Sports, the Iowa 24/7 board, the writers over there, almost the West Virginia's writers, everybody knows this. It's pretty much common knowledge at this point that he is a top candidate. Now that doesn't mean he'll take the job, or it doesn't mean that maybe they offer Ben McCollum the job instead of him. That is another possibility here. Ben McCollum is also a candidate for this job. Maybe he just wows them in the interview and they decide to take him offer him the job instead of Darian. That's possible too. That's why Darren's got to be careful how he handles this, What's up, Leo? Jackson Clark says, Coach said he didn't want to leave Drake except for somewhere special where he wanted to build. Hope he stays true to his word. I don't think he leaves, but would be bummed if he does. And Jax, that's kind of how I feel. I wouldn't hate him for it. I might be upset with him. I might be mad at him for a little bit, but I wouldn't necessarily hold it against him because, again, it's his home, right? But it would definitely bum me out. Shaggy says we'll be fine either way, but he hopes he stays. Browns and Beer says I'd call that third tier if I was me at least, but yeah, that's fair. Browns and Beers talking about Iowa, I assume being third tier Big Ten team. Yes. Snowman 1999 says I'm about to hit my first 700 subscribers. I thank you, Couz, for motivating me. Hey man, that's awesome. I didn't even know you had a channel, brother. Congratulations. 700 is a big deal. I don't think people realize how hard it is to get to 700. It's tough. Tosh says if he's leaving, we need to lose early. I totally agree. Leo says if he leaves, give Frazier a chance. Frazier changed our defense this year. Frazier is going to be a head coach somewhere. If I had to guess, he'll start off at a lower level, a mid-major school somewhere, and then work his way up. But you never know. You never know. It doesn't always work that way. He was responsible for getting Sincere Harris and Amani Hansberry to West Virginia, and he's an excellent defensive coach. You're absolutely right. Shaggy of WV, it's like when Huggins left K-State to come back home to WVU. It's hard to compete with going home. Yes. The only difference, Shaggy, being Bob Huggins was also an alum of West Virginia and was a West Virginia fan growing up. You know what? I would venture to guess it might not be that different after all. Even though he didn't play it out Northern, I think the DeVries family were Iowa Hawkeye fans because it's my understanding that Darren's older brother, and his name is leaving me right now. Anyway, Darren's older brother played football at Iowa, is my understanding. So I bet you they're Iowa Hawkeye fans. So Darian DeVries might be Iowa Hawkeye fans, and this is his dream job. It's very possible. Mark Painter says players are feeling they think he is going and Tucker with him. This is why Javon has been different for a few games, especially second half of Colorado. Discussing all this. Yeah, I don't know, Mark. I'm not going to go that far. It's possible. It's possible you don't know what they know or what they've heard. I'm sure they're on social media and hear all the rumblings, So it's very possible. Don't want to rule it out for sure. They are young, they're young men. And they're humans. Browns and Beer says the only problem I really had with Trilly's comment was the runner-up for the Iowa job 15 years ago part. I understand it was a different era, but a Creighton assistant being the runner-up for a Big Ten job, that's a great point. And 15 years ago, that means he would have been just a few years in as an assistant at Creighton. Now, unless everybody just knew he was going to be a superstar coach, but how would you know that at that point, right? He would have been about, halfway through his assistant coaching tenure at Creighton, maybe? Something like that. Mark Painter's another one, says let Chester take the job. That will keep Imani and Sincere. That's another positive to it. I thank you at least, Mark and Leo, both of you who mentioned this and any others who did. I at least think you have to give Chester Frazier an interview for the job. At least. I think you at least owe him that. And I think he deserves it. I think he's a good enough coach to deserve it. He's been an assistant in Illinois. He's been an assistant at Virginia Tech. He's from the Baltimore, Maryland area, so he's going to be able to recruit that area and get players in from that area. He's been at other schools too, but those are the two big ones. Curtis D316 says Iowa NL is horrible, and to use Tucker in this final season in a rebuild is unlikely. And on top of that, his daughter is having a major success in basketball here. Curtis D, about his daughter, she could go to any school. She's good enough. Anywhere she goes, she's going to be a superstar. So, and they're about to finish their season in Morgantown, if they haven't already, assuming that's where she goes. They're about to finish their season there. If they go back to Iowa, she could just go to school there and can pick up where she left off, right? These coaches' kids are used to moving around a lot, so it's probably not as big a deal to them. But I'm sure, I'm sure she doesn't want to be uprooted after just making friends and everything. So I'm not saying it won't be considered, but we all know with these types of professions, the kids don't usually get a vote. It's just usually the way it goes. The parents usually make these decisions. Now, if the kids are older, maybe they will get a vote. So maybe in this case, she will. I doubt Tucker does because Tucker's basically a grown man at this point, and he's only got 1 year left. Chaz Clark says Chester Frazier, maybe another one that wants Chester. Maybe even get Hugs back. I put a thing out on Twitter about that earlier as a joke. Some people took it serious, so I deleted it. They thought I was trying to engagement farm. It wasn't my intent, so I deleted it. I was trying to be funny with a Bob Huggins gif, but people didn't take it that way, so I deleted it. But I don't see that happening. I just don't think Wren, number one, Gordon Gee's still president of West Virginia until July. I don't see him allowing Bob Huggins back. B, I don't see the Board of Regents or the Board of Governors, rather, allowing Bob Huggins back because I'm sure they were probably part of the decision too. We all know Ken Kendrick's feelings on Bob Huggins. He doesn't want him back. I mean, heck, he can't stand the guy after what he did. So, and he's the largest donor to West Virginia. You don't want to piss him off. I think there's way too much baggage with Huggins, unfortunately. I love Huggins, but I just think it's too early. And I just think it's way too risky right now. Wren Baker has already proven he can hire good coaches. Let him do his thing. Let him go out and find a good coach and bring him in if DeVries leaves. Jazz thinks our WVU basketball program is better. Amani and Harris will go with Chester. I agree with that, Tosh. I agree with that, more than likely. Shaq says he has such a good class coming in. I don't know why he would change schools. We can never have nice things. Shaggy of WV says we can have nice things. Other places just take them from us. All valid points. Anthony Slater says, I've read somewhere that WVU has already offered an extension and a raise, but he hasn't signed it yet. Anthony, that was on, again, I don't like sharing stuff on message boards because it's supposed to be behind the paywall, paid VIP stuff. But since you guys brought it up, that's where it came from, is over there, 24/7. And it was from Mike Recruit. I think it was Mike Cazaza put it up over there. That, yes, there's an extension basically sitting on DeVries' desk waiting for his signature. Too many cons to go to Iowa, says Curtis. Shaggy says it's a better job. Convince Jay Wright or Coach K. Wren actually called Jay Wright last time when the Bob Huggins situation happened. He put a call into Jay Wright. I don't think Jay Wright was interested in coming back to coaching. And Coach K, unfortunately, I think Coach K is too old. I love Coach K. He's the legend, maybe the best ever, outside of John Wooden. I think he might be the second best ever. But I just think at his age, you don't want to do it. He doesn't want to deal with NIL and the portal and all that. That's the reason he got out of it. So you need a coach who can embrace that. Curtis thinks Ben McCollum is more likely to go to Iowa unless he goes to Indiana. That's the thing. Iowa fans overwhelmingly want Ben McCollum, and they almost want the same rate they want DDV at. I think we're fine. That's not what I'm getting from the message boards. I went over to the Iowa message boards a few times a day to check it out, and it looks like there's a lot of them on the DDV train over there. So I don't know that I agree with that statement. We're probably just hearing two different. I'm hearing one segment. You're hearing another segment. Javon's not going to care. I'm not sure where that came from. If I said it, I didn't mean to. Oh, I think, Tosh, I know what you're referring to. I think you were referring to the comment that was made about Javon's play. I think they were just referring to the fact that it might be just in the back of his mind as a distraction. But you're right, he's not going to care because he's leaving anyway. WVU paid DeVries and up the NIL. Go get that natty, says Glenn Marsh. WVU Fan 13 says nothing. It's something to talk about. However, I think we need to give Coach the respect due because he is an outstanding, upstanding man. I don't think he would leave after 1 year. He'll be back. I hope you're right. Bill Sheet says Indiana has way more money than Iowa. Agreed. WVU Fan 13 says, then again, Coach Huggins left Kansas State and headed to WVU for a dream job. And he said he would not have left Kansas State in any other circumstances. After 1 year like that, he had things rolling at K-State. He had a great recruiting class coming in. One of the top, Michael Beasley, the top recruit in the country coming in, or one of the top recruits anyway. Kansas State was coming off a 22 or 23 win season, an NIT tournament appearance. He had Bill. They had that other player named Bill something. What was that guy's name? He was a great player, Bill. Anyway, his name was Bill. He and Michael Beasley played together. Two great players. Tosh says, I hope Drake wins it all and they forget about DeVries. You and me both, Tosh. All right. Well, listen, guys, that's about all I got. I appreciate you guys hopping on here for this live show. If you're watching this on X, please come over to my YouTube channel, Hoops from the Hills, and subscribe. Help me get to my next goal of 3,000 subs. Continue to follow us here. I will be following this story. Also, go check out my website, wvsportschat.com. There is an article up over there. I actually put it up right before I came on. So go read it, please, and support the other articles that are over there as well. I'm in the process of adding more writers, hopefully, to the site very soon. So anyway, with that being said, I appreciate everybody's support. Again, thumbs up, comments, subscriptions, all helps. Hope the rest of your day or evening is top shelf. God bless and Q Country Roads.